helping midlife women to release and heal from the midlife mother wound so they can confidently be themselves, seen, heard, and have fun whilst living the life they truly want to live without guilt or shame. Today's interview is with Brooke Bownes, who is a trauma-informed coach specialising with the midlife mother wound. Today's episode is amazing, so I encourage you to listen in. Hello, you're listening to the Courageous Goals podcast. This podcast is for high-achieving, courageous women who want growth and the know-how to scale their business online. Running a business is a journey and a process. The more we learn in action, the more we succeed. If you're a woman in business, this is the podcast for you. Be in the 5% of businesses that make it. Let's get bold and create the life we desire. I'm bringing my passion to you through advice, coaching, inspiration, and support to help you create and design the life and business you want to live. I am a Dubsado expert, CPD certified in social media platforms, and a lover of admin systems and processes. I am an accredited ICF coach, specialising in trauma and narcissism. My own coaching journey has supported my growth immensely, and I want to share those highlights with you to inspire and give you courage. Let's get intentional with our goals and make them happen. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Courageous Goals podcast. Today's guest is Brooke Bownes. Brooke is a trauma-informed coach and specialising in the mother wound. Brooke, would you like to introduce yourself? I'm sure you can explain who you are and what you do a little better than I.
Hello, Leanne. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a real honour to be invited on. So I'm Brooke Bownes. I'm a trauma coach. I've actually been nicknamed the Breakthrough Queen by a few of my clients because I help them to break through their old stories and their old beliefs to release and heal their trauma so they can live the life that they truly want to live without the shame and without the guilt. And I'm really passionate about raising the awareness of the mother wound and trauma in particular. And a lot of people are like, well, what's the mother wound? And that's when your mother's had unhealed wounds and she kind of passes them on to you because she's very judgmental, very critical, and she's there physically, but maybe not emotionally. She's emotionally absent. And when I say that to so many women, like, oh my goodness, that's my mother. I just thought that she wasn't very emotional. So it's sort of realizing that, so many of us have had those mothers that have got their own inner child wounds that were never healed because, I deal a lot with midlife women. So back in the 60s and 70s, there wasn't like the therapy and the counseling to help them out. So they just dealt with the life as best they could.
Right. God, that's absolutely fascinating. I love that. I've never looked at it in that way before.
Yeah, it is. So many people come to me and say, well, that's just the way our family is. We're just not very emotional, or it's just, the way my mum's always been. She's never been like a very, affectionate type mother. And I never went to her for like the love because I would never get it. But these mothers have got those inner child wounds where they don't know how to love. So they're just trying to deal with themselves, and I've got a very narcissistic mother, and that comes under that umbrella as well, because sometimes when you've got such, deep inner child wounds, it can create the narcissist, and then they just deal with life in a completely different way as well.
So what is more of your business story? How did you get to this point?
That's quite an interesting story. By accident, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I said, I had a narcissistic mother, so I grew up with trauma, and I was actually born with a cord wrapped around my neck. So as I was being born, I was being strangled. So my intro into the world was traumatic, and I spent a lot of time, with my mother being sort of put down, being told every day I was ugly, worthless, I'd never amount to anything. She wished I'd have died at birth, that I didn't even have the audacity to be born properly. So you can imagine hearing that every day as a little girl and being very, very confused. And I then, the doctor said that I would probably never walk, and if I did, I would never run or ride a bike. Well, I did eventually learn to walk a bit later in life. And when I went back to the doctors, they said that's amazing that you've learned to walk, but you won't ever run or ride a bike because the whole right side of my body was weaker than my left. And they said you won't be able to hold the handlebar and push the pedal with your right foot. So, you know, just be happy that you're walking. And I remember I was about 5 at the time. I said, I will, and I'll come in and show you. Because to me, my brother could ride a bike. And I thought, well, he's normal and he rides a bike. So if I ride a bike, my mum will love me because I'll be normal then.
Yeah.
And then when we got home, she was like, how dare you speak to the doctors like that? How dare you embarrass me? And that's when she really just let rip into me verbally and physically. And I can remember kind of cowering and putting my arms over my head thinking, I need to stay as small as I can to stay safe, because every time I speak out, I get into trouble. So I then became that very shy, quiet little girl that was scared to say anything. And but I just desperately wanted everybody to be happy, because I wasn't happy, because I was living on eggshells, very hyper vigilant, a big people pleaser, trying to please her. So I didn't get the verbal or physical abuse, and which led me to have a narcissistic relationship. I walked straight out the frying pan into the fire as such. And then it made me realize, actually, I'm the common factor here. Maybe if I change how I feel about me, people around me will change. So I started on a self-development path of, you know, reading as many self-development books as I possibly could. And then sort of like what I learned, I was talking to other people about and helping other people. And then I had 2 little boys, which I absolutely loved, because that was my goal, to be a mum. And then I got pregnant with my 3rd child, and I've come out of a supermarket and a friend saw me and quite innocently remarked, saying, oh, I didn't realize you was pregnant. I bet you'd love a little girl. Well, that was a kind of like, oh no moment, because I thought, if I have a little girl, what if I had the same relationship that I had with my mother, and my mother had with her mother? It was like generational, because trauma goes back like 7 generations.
Yeah.
I don't want a little girl, you know, I'm happy to have another little boy. I thought, okay, I may have, yeah, it's a 50-50 chance of having a little girl. I really need to work even more on my mindset. Thankfully, I did have a little girl, and I went on to have 2 girls, and they're now 28 and 29, and they're my best friends. So that story worked out really, really nicely. But people said to me, you know, you should do this work for a living. You're so good at helping everybody else out. Why don't you look at doing it sort of professionally? I thought, well, I've never really thought about that. Then, as it happened, a friend of mine said, I'm going to a 2-day weekend, like diploma for coaching. It's a free weekend, but I don't want to go on my own. Do you fancy coming? I thought, oh, okay. I love to learn. I'll go along. And as they were doing the diploma, I thought, I already do that. I already do that. I thought, oh, okay, maybe that's what I should be doing. So I kind of fell into coaching by accident, really. But the trauma was still in me then at the time. You know, logically, I knew that I was safe, but my body was reacting in a completely different way. So then I went down the path of studying trauma in the body and how it worked in the body. And then once I actually released the trauma from my body, it was a whole big game changer, you know. So, you know, many of us will logically know, okay, I'm completely safe to do a Facebook Live, but my body's absolutely acting like I'm being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. What's going on? They don't realize it's often trauma that's stuck in the body, that we can mentally know that we're safe, but our bodies will be reacting to things that happened when we was a young child, and it's still stuck in there until we actually learn to release it and heal from it. So yeah, so short answer, yeah, I got into the business purely by accident, but it's the best thing I ever done, because I remember when I was 7, I've always had an old head on my shoulders, looking up at the sky, and I'm not particularly religious or anything, thinking, I don't know who's listening, but you know, I know I'm here for a purpose, and I've got this mother for a purpose. You know, can you let me know what it is so I can kind of do something with it? And I've now realized my purpose was to be able to be a voice for other women until they feel empowered to have their own voice, and to share my story so other women can say, I'm not alone, and I can share my story too and help other women.
Yeah, yeah. My gosh, that must have been so, oh gosh, well, traumatizing and really hard to deal with. But also, I tend to find that so many people I speak to would like to work with people where they've experienced all of these things themselves, because they can relate to everything, they can easily support and help them. And that's exactly what you're doing. You've been through all of this in your past, and obviously you wouldn't choose to go through it, but everyone goes through things for a reason, or that's what I believe anyway. So you've got to this path for, you know, your own reasons, and you're now using that to support and help other people who have been through the same thing or still going through it even.
Absolutely. And I've turned my, as they say, turned my pain into my passion. And so many times I hear people say, it's so nice that you get me, because sometimes clients will come to me and because they're traumatized, their words don't come out, and they say, I don't quite know how to say it. I said, well, just say it how you feel it, and we'll kind of unpick it. And I can see their body relaxing, and then they'll say things. And often it's the guilt and shame of saying, oh, well, I don't actually feel like I love my mother, and I feel really guilty about that. And I'm like, that's okay. I completely get that. I don't love my mother. In society, we're brought up to think, well, it doesn't matter what your mum does. She gave birth to you. You need to respect her. You need to love her because she's your mother. Well, when you've been through a traumatic childhood like that, and you've got a narcissistic mother, you don't feel that way. And a lot of people feel really, really guilty about saying, I don't actually love my mother, or I don't feel those feelings to her that everybody else says I should feel about her.
Yeah, and you don't always realize these things when you're in the situation, do you? It's usually years later, like you, that where you actually think, actually, my mother is this, or
Yeah.
whoever is this. It's really fascinating. It truly is. So, what's the full idea around the mother wound? And I think, did I hear you say you've recently had that trademarked?
Yeah, Midlife Mother Wound. I've just got the registration back. It's fully registered now, so it's quite exciting.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely shout about it.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the midlife mother wound, and it is raising the awareness of the mother wound. Because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of women think their mothers were just a bit unemotional, and they don't realize the trauma that their mothers have caused, and that's what's stopping them and holding them back from doing the things they want to do. Often, things like, if they're in business and they're online, they want to do a Facebook Live, they want to be seen. But being seen to somebody who's been through a traumatic childhood feels quite dangerous, because every time they spoke up and were seen as a child, they were often punished in some way. So the body is remembering that all the time. So by me raising the awareness and saying to people, yeah, your mother was okay, because physically she may have been there. Like my mother, I was very well presented all the time. I had nice clothes, I was always very clean, my hair was washed, I was looked after physically, because she had this idea that we needed to look like the perfect family. And often narcissists do that. They have this image of, I need to look perfect. So I looked like I was well cared for, but behind closed doors I was just an empty shell. Behind that false smile that she made me put on when we were out and about was a very, very sad, empty little girl that was crying out for that help. So talking about the mother wound and raising that with sort of especially midlife women, because being brought up in the 60s and 70s is like, when you spoke out and said, well, my mum's hitting me, it's like, well, you probably deserved it, because back then we often got a clip around the ear for being naughty or whatever. And it's those women that haven't been believed. If I had a pound for every time somebody said to me, oh, your mum can't be that bad, I'd be a multi-millionaire probably by now. Slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Because when we do speak out, people think, oh, because especially if they've got mothers that are kind, caring and nurturing, like a mother should be, they can't conceive how a mother can be, as nasty as we're talking about. But those mothers are out there, and I'm not putting any blame on them, because they've got their own inner child wounds that they've had from their mothers and from generations back. So it's understanding that what they're doing, they can't really help it, but it's also understanding that you can be healed from it, that you don't have to keep dealing with it and putting up with that abuse. Because I speak to a lot of women like in their 40s to their 60s who have still got mothers who are still being abusive to them. Like, even the mothers are in their 80s and 90s, and they're still controlling them and still manipulating them, because they know how to push their buttons, and they know how to sort of keep them in their control. And it's freeing for them to know that they don't have to live that way, but they've never thought of it that way. They've never questioned it. And that's why I'm passionate about raising the awareness of the mother wound and trauma.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind me asking, but how does it make you feel talking about it all so much and, working with it day to day?
I'm okay with it, because I've sort of dealt with my trauma, and I've healed from it. Even though I'm an empath, I feel for these women, and I'll often cry with them as well, because it's really good to let those tears go. But I have lots of techniques to cope with it, and I make sure every time after I've been with a client that I've got the space to go out and go for a walk, do a stretch, get a drink. So I process it as well, because some of the things that these women have been through are even worse than the things I've been through. So it's, to me, it's more the passion of it overrides that fact that it's okay for me to talk about it, because I've been through so much with it. I've spent my whole life talking about it and not being believed and heard about it, but now people are now starting to believe me and understand it. And it's really sort of refreshing to be able to help all these women, because these women come to me and say, it's nice that I'm not alone. It's such a relief that I'm not alone, because so many of them feel alone in the world. So to me, knowing that they don't feel alone overrides the fact of having to talk about all the traumatic things that have happened, and holding space for those people, and them being felt, heard and being seen, and them healing, is what helps me to keep going every day, to get up every day, to be excited about what I do. And it may sound like, it's an awful thing to talk about trauma all day, day in, day out, but to actually help them to release that trauma and to heal from it is the beautiful thing that happens. And I often do the analogy of, it's a bit like a cake. When clients come to me, when you start off with a cake, you've got everything in compartments, like you've got your eggs, your flour, and your sugar all in separate bowls. And that's how clients come to me. They've got all their emotions like in little compartments, in little boxes tucked away, and they're not kind of really dealing with them. But what we do is we get messy. We get all those emotions out. It's a bit like a cake. You have to mix the eggs, the sugar, and the flour together and get messy. But what comes out at the end is a beautiful cake that everybody can see and everybody can enjoy. And what comes out as a client is a client that feels wonderful about themselves, that they feel whole, and they feel, they've found themselves again. So it's a wonderful process. That messy bit in the middle is I know that when they come out of it, they're going to be completely different people and feel wonderful about themselves. And they're not going to be new people. They're going to discover who they really were when they were first born, and who they were actually meant to be before they had the beliefs and stories piled onto them from other people.
Gosh, it's a fascinating topic. I could talk about this all day with you.
It is.
Gosh, okay, right. So how long have you actually been in business, and what motivates you?
I've been coaching all of my life, basically, and I did coaching in the corporate world, but I actually, if you want to class it as a time, I got my coaching qualification in 2016. So we're talking 6 years ago. And what motivates me is helping people to feel better about themselves, to realize that they're not crazy, that it's not their fault, and they can do something about it. Like, I've just done a week's confidence boot camp, and so many women on there have had aha moments and realizations that, oh my goodness, it's my mother and her wounds and her issues that she's projecting onto me. It wasn't me. I wasn't at fault, because so many women walk around thinking, if I'd have been a better daughter, if I'd have been a better niece, better child at school, those people wouldn't have got angry and upset with me. But they didn't matter what you do, people would have still got angry and upset, because it was their issues that they haven't dealt with, and they were just projecting them out onto the people. And especially with if you've got a mother who's a narcissist, or a father that's a narcissist, even, they don't see children as actual people. They just see their children as an extension of themselves to abuse and do what they want to do with. And like, when you do something that they could say that they are proud of, they won't say that they're proud of you for doing it. They will say, that's because, how I brought her up. It's only because of me that she's managed to do X, Y, and Z. So they don't see people, their children, as actual separate people. They just see them as extensions of themselves. So it's very difficult sometimes to separate that, and to help people to realize that they aren't to blame. But once they get that, the relief from them in their faces and their bodies, and they can then start to see things in a different way. And that's what I help my clients do, to think differently and see what happened in the past differently, so they can actually move on with their lives.
Yeah, it's about processing it in the right way, isn't it? And not still
Yes,
kind of looking at it as though it's all your fault. It's just understanding it from other people's point of views as well.
absolutely.
Gosh, okay. So who or what has supported you the most in this journey?
Or I've had so many coaches and therapists throughout my journey, and lots of people that I read books on and stuff. And I think my biggest supporter and my help is my husband. He is absolutely wonderful. He's my biggest cheerleader. And like we said, just before when we were chatting before the podcast, it's actually the anniversary of my dad passing away today. He passed away a year ago, and my husband's support was absolutely outstanding. And I will happily tell people that when my dad passed away, I had a lot of trauma come up that I didn't realize was kind of really, really buried. And I had lots of help and support from therapists and coaches, and my husband was there every day with me, helping me and supporting me through it. And I could go on. This podcast would go on for hours if I listened to all the people that helped me. But and my children are my biggest supporters as well. I've got 4 amazing children. They're in their late 20s and early 30s, and they are so supportive of me, and understand what I went through as a child, and they know what my mother's like, and they're amazingly supportive as well. So I've got lots of people to thank for helping me get to where I am today.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what's unique about what you do?
I think the fact that I've been through it, and I will never say that I walked in my client's shoes, because I believe that everybody's walked a very unique journey, but I've walked in very, very similar shoes. And when I start talking to my clients and they say, well, I don't know how to put it into words, and I can start talking about how things happen to me, and they're like, yes, that's it. Yes, that's it. Oh, that makes total sense. So it's that clarity of like, oh my goodness, I've helped them to make sense of the world that they thought they were slightly crazy in, and that nobody believed them. So having gone through all that, because I've had a traumatic birth, I've had a narcissistic mother, I've had narcissistic partners, I've been divorced, I've been homeless, I've been a single mother. So I've experienced a lot in my life that I can relate to all my clients with, and some of them have been through that as well. And so many people say, oh my goodness, it's like when you tell your story that you're living my story. And they reach out to me because they don't have to spend hours explaining themselves to them, how they feel and what's gone on, because I get it. So we can just get into going on with the work that needs to be done to help them to heal and release their trauma. And I understand how they're feeling. And when I describe to them often, it's like, I bet your heart's pounding like mad. And they're like, yeah, it is. It's like, oh, okay, I can relax now, because you get where I'm at, because I can tell by people's body language. Because growing up with a narcissistic mother, I got very good at reading her body language and hopefully trying to dodge and people please. So I didn't get the abuse either verbally or physically from her. So I could try and minimize it as much as possible. It didn't always work out, but I tried my best as a young child.
Yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask you what are the secrets to your success, but I think you've kind of answered that throughout, and it's about sharing you and your story, what you've been through, and being able to relate to people. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, be me. I spent so many years not being me, because I didn't know who I was, because along the way I got lost, and I just used to have this false like face on with this smile, like, yes, I'm fine, but inside I was really, really dying. But once I started to really heal from the trauma and realized what was going on, I then just really embraced who I was. And I will go out and do Facebook Lives, and I'm just learning to do Reels now, which is hilarious. I'm having fun with it. They're not great. I'm doing the basic ones, but I don't mind making mistakes, because what I found is the more mistakes I make and the more imperfect I show myself as, because nobody's perfect, it gives permission for other people to be them and to try things and make mistakes and know that it's okay. I talk a lot about confidence. I've got a group called the Confidence Community, and because underneath the confidence is those traumas that are going on, and people are frightened to do things. Well, what if I fail? What if I make a mistake? And what I help people to learn and teach is that I'm giving you the confidence to be confident, to know that regardless of how the outcome comes out, that you're going to be okay. Trust in yourself that if it doesn't work out as you planned, you can tweak and look at it and learn and grow from it, and you're going to be okay. And if it does go as planned and you succeed, you're also going to be okay.
Yeah. Gosh, okay. So what do you want to achieve next? What's coming up that you might like to share with people?
Well, we've actually got, I've done a collaboration book that's coming out in September. And it's all about narcissistic abuse, domestic violence and trauma. And with this 14 of us together, and we've wrote a book and about how we've overcome it, how we've released our traumas, how we've recovered from it as well. So we're really excited about that. It's coming, hopefully it's going to come out on the 19th of September, but that may change slightly, obviously, sadly, because we've lost the Queen, and depending on, you know, when her funeral is and things, so we may change the date, but it's going to be around the 19th of September. We're going to be launching that, and that's going to be such an amazing book. We've also already got celebrities who advocate, you know, for domestic violence and trauma, who want to read it and who want to promote it for us as well. So, and next year I'm planning on actually writing my life journey as well. So
Wow.
I wrote a book last year, actually wrote it and published it in 90 days. It's all about how to break through the self-sabotage cycle, which is on Amazon, and it's called You Can Have It. But I really want to write my actual life journey, which obviously will take me a bit longer than 90 days to write and publish. But that's my goal for next year, to write that book, because writing a book so people can have it and read it in their own time. I want to really raise awareness of the mother wound and trauma, and to speak to as many women as I possibly can, so they don't think it's their fault, and they can change how they feel about themselves and actually discover who they really are and live the life they truly want, without that guilt and without that shame of feeling like, you know, I can't talk about my mother because, you know, society says that we should love our mothers regardless of whatever's happened in their life, because they gave birth to us.
Okay. You've got lots of big things coming up then. It sounds really exciting. I'll be one of the first to buy both books, by the way.
Fantastic, yeah.
Okay, so for other courageous women listening to this that might be either starting or growing a business, not necessarily around what you're doing, but just a business in general, what would your top tips be to give them that courage to go ahead and keep going?
To be yourself. You are good enough, and the more you be yourself, the more people will relate to you. I'll tell a real story real quickly. When I first started doing online work, my coach said to me, go do a Facebook Live on your personal profile. I'm like, what? It's like, no. So yeah, you'll be fine. But I was that nervous that I'd got the camera around the wrong way, and because I was quite traumatized about it at the time, I couldn't think logically how to flip the camera around. But I wanted to get this message out, and I was determined to do it. So I just went on and joked and said, well, I can't think how to turn the camera around. I was totally honest, and I said, all you're going to see is my carpet, but I will talk about what I want to talk about. Thankfully I've hoovered today, so at least you're seeing a clean carpet. And I went on and did my Facebook Live, and after that finished, I had 2 people message me and say, I'd love to do some coaching with you, because I can so relate to you. It's so nice that you haven't come on all polished and professional with the lighting just perfect, the perfect backdrop and everything. It's so relatable that, you know, I feel that I can't always relate to people that come on so polished and so perfect.
Yeah.
And I've used that story. I mean, that was back in like 2016, or whenever it was that Facebook Live first come out, so it's years ago. But I still tell my clients that story. And I says, if you can get your Facebook face on the Facebook Live, then you're already miles ahead of me, because I couldn't even do that, which then makes them laugh and relax about it. So just be you, embrace your mistakes, you know, talk about your mistakes. Now, if you think I want to do a Facebook Live, but my hair's not quite right, go on and do a Facebook Live and say, you know, I've come on here, even though my hair doesn't look quite right, you know, it probably could do with a wash, but I really want to share my message. So you're not constantly thinking, what are people thinking about my hair? Because you've actually mentioned it, so the people can listen to what you've got to say. So the more I've become myself, the more I've shared about myself and being vulnerable, the more my business has grown and grown and grown.
Yeah, and people can relate to that so much easily, can't they? It's, you know, since I started actually my Facebook group earlier this year, I've been going live every week apart from throughout the summer. And every single time I do it, it does get easier, but still every single time I'm still very nervous. But I don't even mind talking about that and saying it and sharing it with people, because if they can see you're nervous but you're doing it anyway, it gives
Yeah,
them the courage to then go and do the same thing. So yeah, it does make
absolutely.
a
I
difference.
mean, I do a lot of walking Facebook lives. I love to be outside, and I live in the country, and sometimes, you know, there's a tree by a path, and the tree roots just push the path up, because I'm holding my phone and sort of like walking, I often trip, and I'll say, "Oh, I've just tripped and fell over," and I kind of like describe, and often because people know me now, they're like, "Yeah, enjoy your trip, Brooke," you know. But it doesn't stop people hiring me as their coach. They don't think, "Oh my goodness, she's just so clumsy, she can't even do a Facebook Live right." They actually relate to it more because I'm real and I'm raw and I'm very, very vulnerable. And as you know, as you've seen today, I'll happily share my story and share how I'm feeling about doing things. Like I did the boot camp, like I talked about, and it's the biggest boot camp I've ever had. So I had to have a couple of people come on and help me, like let people in and keep an eye on the chat, because it was very, very active and very, very busy. And I said on there quite honestly, this is really, really strange to me, because these boot camps that I've been doing for the last few years are my babies, and to actually hand it over and let somebody else deal with the people in the chat seems really, really strange to me. And
Mm.
everybody on the boot camp were like, thank you for saying that, because, you know, sometimes I feel really strange, you know, asking somebody to help me out. So people were relating to that, and they were more relaxed about it, because I'm really honest about things as I go. And I want to be that coach that people think, you know, she hasn't got it perfectly all together, because nobody's got it perfectly all together. And I want to let people know that because I'm doing things and I'm not doing them absolutely perfectly on point, it gives permission for other people to do things and explore things and take those risks. Like with me doing my reels on Instagram, if you go see them, they're not brilliantly polished, they're not perfect, but I'm learning as I go along. But I'm having great fun, and you know, I've got to the stage now I'm adding a little bit of music in now, because I've sussed out how to do that, and next week I'll suss out how to do something else different. And it's just good fun. And I've
Yeah.
only got like 1,400 followers on Instagram, because I've never really used it much. But my first reel had like 2,500 people watch it. So it's like more people watched it than I've actually got followers. So I'm getting my message out there. And I did a very, very simple one, and they're only like 7 seconds long. So it's just that matter of like realizing. And if you've got that feeling of like, and you tense up, that's a signal that sends it to your subconscious mind to think, okay, we're in danger. Where's the danger? And you then go into that fight or flight mode. So you start thinking, you can't think logically. So it's a matter about being aware of your body, and how relaxed your nervous system is and how relaxed your body is. Because when your body's relaxed, your subconscious mind knows that you're safe. So you can think logically to do the things that you want to do.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I do tend to find that after I've had a coaching session that I'm more relaxed, and I will then more be brave to go and do a live or something like that, and I don't mess up as much. I'm just
Yeah,
like, it's fine, I'm okay with how I am, and I just carry on and I do it. So yeah, after a coaching session that really helps.
absolutely. Because you, like you say, when you're relaxed, you're thinking from the logical front part of your brain. But when you're tense and nervous, you're actually thinking from what's called the limbic system, the amygdala, which is like where the fight or flight part comes in. It's like, okay, I'm in survival mode now. I'm not actually calm and thinking logically. So if you do feel that you want to do a Facebook Live, and you feel really, really tense, then just drop your shoulders, drop your jaw, check your heart rate. If it's really, really pounding, do some really deep breathing to relax your, you know, to slow your heart rate down, because obviously your subconscious mind knows if your heart rate's normal, that you're not running from danger or ready to fight. And then you'll find your Facebook lives or whatever you want to do will flow, because you're then thinking from the logical part of your brain, rather than that fight or flight or freeze part that is that safety mechanism.
Yeah, yeah, that's good advice. I like that. Right, Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I'm sure you will have inspired so many people, truly. Is there any way you'd like to ask people to follow you or connect with you? What would be the best way?
Facebook or Instagram, or on my email address is brooke@brookebownes.com is my email, and my Facebook group is the confidence community. Be confident to be you, to be seen, heard, and have fun. And on Instagram, it's just Instagram Brooke Bownes. But I think you've got the links for all of those, haven't you? So, but yeah, if anybody wants to email me to ask me a question or reach out to me, if they send me an email at brooke@brookebownes.com, I reply to all my emails. So I often get lots of emails after I do a podcast asking me different questions and stuff, and I'll happily do a 30-minute complimentary call with anybody that would like to sort of know more and see if I can help them out as well.
Fabulous. Okay. And are you happy for me to drop those links in the show notes so that people
Absolutely.
can connect and then obviously see when the books come out?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And if you want to send me a friend request, it's Brooke Bownes 01 on Facebook as well. So
okay. Right, that's great. Thank you so much, Brooke. And I wish you a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have a good day too. Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening to the Courageous Goals podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode and taken something of value for you. If you'd love more advice, coaching, inspiration and support, head on over to join many other courageous women in business in our free community group over on Facebook. We'd love to welcome you. You can also find free useful resources over on the website at leannebrown.com/resources. Right, that's all for this week. I look forward to sharing another episode with you next week.